The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clanged against the concrete floor of my garage. It was past midnight, and I was elbow deep in Mrs. Henderson's Mustang when I heard my wife Chloe's voice drifting through the kitchen window above my workbench. If I had a do-over, I'd never marry Jake. Her laugh was sharp, cutting through the humid Dallas night like a blade. Nice to know where you stand after 15 years, 2 dogs, and a mortgage that could choke a horse, Chloe. I wiped my hands on an oil-stained rag and listened closer. She was on the phone, probably with her best friend Rita, gossiping about her pathetic husband, who spent his nights fixing other people's broken dreams instead of living his own. He's just so ordinary, Chloe continued. Trevor says I deserve better. Trevor, that name had been popping up in our conversations more frequently lately. Trevor from the law firm. Trevor with his expensive suits and flashy Beamer. Trevor who apparently had opinions about my wife's marriage. I climbed out from under the hood and looked through the window. There she was in our pristine kitchen, pacing in her silk pajamas, gesticulating wildly as she talked. Even at midnight, Chloe looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine, blonde hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless. She'd always been beautiful, but somewhere along the way, that beauty had turned cold, calculating. The game night at Will and Tara's tomorrow should be interesting, she said into the phone. I'm thinking of making some changes in my life. Changes, right. I've been watching those changes for months now. The late nights at the office. The new gym membership she'd suggested I get as a subtle hint about my expanding waistline. The way she looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her designer heels. I grabbed my toolbox and headed inside. Chloe quickly ended her call when she heard me coming. Working late again? She asked, not looking up from her phone. Mrs. Henderson needs her car tomorrow, I said, washing my hands at the kitchen sink. Some of us have to work for a living. Don't start, Jake. I work plenty hard. Sure you do. All those late meetings with Trevor must be exhausting. Her head snapped up, eyes flashing. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all, sweetheart. Just making conversation with my beloved wife. She studied my face, looking for signs of suspicion, but I kept my expression neutral. After 15 years of marriage, I'd learned to hide my thoughts pretty well. I'm going to bed, she announced, sweeping past me toward the stairs. Try not to wake me when you come up. Wouldn't dream of it. I waited until I heard our bedroom door close, then pulled out my laptop. Time to do a little research on Trevor Miles, real estate agent extraordinaire. What I found made my blood pressure spike. Trevor wasn't just any realtor. He was the kind of smooth-talking shark who specialized in high-end properties, and apparently high-end married women. His social media was full of photos from expensive restaurants, luxury cars, and weekend trips to places I couldn't afford to take my wife. But what really caught my attention was a photo from last weekend. Trevor at some charity gala. And there in the background, barely visible but unmistakably present, was Chloe. She'd told me she was working late that Saturday. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Game night at Will and Tara's was going to be very interesting indeed. The next evening I dressed carefully. Clean jeans, my best polo shirt, the cologne Chloe used to say she loved. I even shaved twice. If my wife wanted to play games, I'd make sure I looked my best for the performance. Will and Tara lived 3 blocks away in our little slice of suburban paradise. Their house was bigger than ours, with a perfectly manicured lawn and one of those ridiculous fountain features in the front yard. Will worked in tech, made twice what I did, and never let anyone forget it. Jake, Chloe, Tara greeted us at the door with air kisses and wine glasses. Everyone's already here. Everyone included Rita, Chloe's gossip queen best friend who'd never liked me, and surprise, surprise, Trevor Miles himself. He was even more obnoxious in person, with his designer stubble and $1,000 watch. Jake, good to see you again, Trevor said, extending a manicured hand. Chloe's told me so much about you. I'll bet she has, I replied, gripping his hand just a little too firmly. And she's mentioned you quite a bit lately, too. Was that a flicker of nervousness in his eyes? Hard to tell in the dim lighting of Will's man cave. We settled in for couples trivia. The kind of game that's designed to either bring you closer together or expose every crack in your relationship. Chloe and I had always been good at it, back when we actually knew things about each other. The questions started easy. Favorite movies, dream vacation spots, pet peeves. Chloe and I answered in sync, the perfect married couple. But I could see Trevor watching us, watching her, with the kind of attention that had nothing to do with casual friendship. Then Tara asked the question that changed everything. Okay, this is a fun one. Ladies, would you marry your husband again if you had the chance to do it all over? Rita giggled and said yes. Tara kissed Will dramatically and declared she'd marry him in every lifetime. Then all eyes turned to Chloe. She didn't hesitate. Absolutely not. Never again. The room erupted in nervous laughter. Everyone assumed she was joking, being dramatic for effect. Everyone except me. I smiled calmly and reached into the manila envelope I'd brought with me. Good, I said, sliding the papers across the coffee table. Because I brought these. The laughter died instantly. Chloe stared at the divorce papers, her face draining of color. Her name was already filled in along with mine. All that was missing was her signature. Jake, what the hell? She started. You think this is a joke, Chloe? I interrupted, my voice deadly serious. I've been tracking your snide remarks and late nights for months. You want out? Here's your exit. The silence was deafening. Will cleared his throat awkwardly. Tara clutched her wine glass like a lifeline. Rita's mouth hung open in shock. But it was Trevor's reaction that interested me most. His face had gone pale, and he was staring at the papers like they might explode. You think this is funny? Chloe finally managed, her voice shaking with rage and embarrassment. I think it's honest, I replied. Something we haven't been in a long time. I locked eyes with Trevor across the room and smiled. Don't worry, Trev. I'm sure someone will be there to comfort her through this difficult transition. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. Guilty as charged. The next morning, I was up before dawn, moving with the kind of purpose I hadn't felt in years. While Chloe slept off her humiliation hangover, I systematically began dismantling the financial infrastructure of our marriage. Joint bank accounts? I transferred my half to a new account she didn't know about. Credit cards? Canceled the ones in my name. Her gym membership, her spa treatments, her weekly mani-pedi appointments? All paid for with cards that were now worthless pieces of plastic. By the time she stumbled downstairs in her silk robe, I was already 3 steps ahead. Morning, sweetheart, I said cheerfully, not looking up from my laptop. Coffee's fresh. She poured herself a cup with shaking hands. About last night. What about it? I thought it went well. Very illuminating. You embarrassed me in front of our friends. Our friends? I laughed. Rita hasn't said a kind word about me in 5 years. Will treats me like the hired help. And Trevor? I looked up at her meaningfully. Well, Trevor's got his own agenda, doesn't he? Her face flushed red. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Like the fact that you were at the Ritz-Carlton charity gala last Saturday when you told me you were working late. The coffee cup slipped from her fingers and shattered on the kitchen tile. Brown liquid spread across the white floor like a stain on our marriage. How did you... Social media is a wonderful thing, Chloe. Trevor really should be more careful about his photo backgrounds. She knelt to clean up the mess, her hands trembling. For the first time in years, I saw fear in her eyes instead of contempt. Jake, let me explain. No need. I understand perfectly. You're bored with your ordinary husband and his ordinary life. Trevor represents excitement, adventure, expensive dinners. I get it. I closed the laptop and stood up. What I don't get is why you didn't just ask for a divorce, instead of sneaking around like a teenager. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And now everyone's going to know it. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? I smiled and headed for the door. Have a great day, honey. Try not to break anything else. I spent the morning at my shop, pretending to work while actually planning my next moves. My business partner, Danny, kept shooting me worried looks. You okay, boss? You seem different today. Just had a breakthrough, Danny. Sometimes you need to stop being reactive and start being proactive. Around noon, I drove to Ricky's gym. Ricky Santos had been my best friend since high school, back when he was destined for the UFC before a knee injury derailed his dreams. Now he owned the toughest gym in Dallas and trained fighters who actually made it to the big leagues. "Jake!" he called out when I walked in. "What brings you to my house of pain?" "I need to get in shape, Rick, and I need to learn how to handle myself." He looked me up and down, taking in my soft belly and desk job posture. "Finally leaving the princess?" "Working on it, but first, I need to make sure I can handle whatever comes next." "She's been cheating, hasn't she?" I didn't answer directly. "Let's just say I need to be prepared for confrontation." Ricky grinned and cracked his knuckles. "Brother, you came to the right place." While I was learning how to throw a proper punch, Chloe was discovering that her credit cards had been declined at her favorite boutique. The humiliation was delicious, even secondhand. She called me screaming, "What did you do to our accounts?" "I protected my assets," I said calmly, holding the phone away from my ear. "The divorce papers are still on the kitchen table if you want to make this official." "You can't just cut me off financially." "Actually, I can. Texas is a community property state, but that doesn't mean I have to keep funding your affair." The line went quiet. "My what?" "Your affair with Trevor. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? The late nights, the new clothes, the sudden interest in charity galas? Come on, Chloe, give me some credit." "I am not having an affair." "Then you won't mind if I call Trevor right now and ask him to confirm that?" Another long silence. "Jake, please, can we talk about this like adults?" "We're past talking. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't good enough for you. Now you get to live with the consequences." I hung up and went back to hitting the heavy bag. Each punch felt like a small victory. That evening, I decided it was time to gather some concrete evidence. I'd installed security cameras around our house 2 years ago, after a series of break-ins in the neighborhood. Chloe had complained about them being ugly, but she'd never asked me to remove them. I spent hours reviewing footage from the past month, fast-forwarding through boring domestic scenes until I found what I was looking for. There it was, clear as day. Trevor's BMW parked in our driveway at 2 a.m. last Tuesday, while I was supposedly at a late-night emergency call for a customer. The timestamp showed he'd stayed for 3 hours. I saved the footage to a flash drive and smiled. Evidence collected through legal means, on my own property. No hacking required, no invasion of privacy. Just good old-fashioned detective work. But the real prize came when I checked the footage from last night. Around 2 a.m., long after we'd returned from the disastrous game night, a figure crept across our backyard toward the house. The motion sensors caught him clearly. Trevor, looking around nervously before trying to peer through our kitchen window. What was he looking for? The divorce papers? Something else? I fast-forwarded and watched him creep around the house for 20 minutes before finally leaving through the back gate. He'd been casing our home, probably trying to figure out what I knew and how much trouble he was in. Time to give him something to really worry about. I grabbed my keys and drove to Trevor's neighborhood, a pretentious gated community where the houses all look like miniature castles and the HOA fees cost more than most people's rent. Trevor lived in a contemporary monstrosity, with too many windows and not enough taste. His BMW was parked in the circular driveway next to a red Porsche that probably belonged to whatever other married woman he was currently seducing. I parked across the street and waited. At 11 p.m., he emerged from the house, dressed in dark clothes and looking around nervously. He got in the BMW and drove toward my neighborhood. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding with anticipation. This was it, the moment I'd catch him in the act. Trevor parked 2 blocks from my house and walked through the darkness, clearly planning another reconnaissance mission. But this time, I was ready for him. I circled around through Mrs. Patterson's yard and positioned myself behind our garden shed. When Trevor crept through the back gate, I was waiting. "Looking for something?" He spun around, terror written across his face. "Jake, I was just..." "Just what? Breaking into my property at midnight?" "I wasn't breaking in. The gate was open." "The gate that you opened, on my property, without permission." I stepped closer, and he backed against the fence. Up close, He was smaller than he'd seemed at the party, softer around the edges despite his expensive gym membership. Look, man, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is you thinking you could screw my wife without consequences. I grabbed him by his designer polo shirt and slammed him against the fence. He yelped like a scared dog. Next time you want to visit my wife, you knock on the front door like a man. You understand me? He nodded frantically. Jake, please, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And if I catch you on my property again, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation. I released him and he stumbled toward the gate. In his panic, he dropped his phone. I picked it up and scrolled through his recent messages. Jackpot. The texts between him and Chloe were explicit, desperate, and absolutely damning. Plans for secret meetings, complaints about her boring husband, and promises of a future together once she figured out the divorce situation. You might want this back, I called out, but Trevor was already gone. Running through the darkness like the coward he was, I pocketed the phone and smiled. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day. Trevor's phone was a goldmine of incriminating evidence. Not just the texts with Chloe, but messages with other women, shady business deals, and enough personal information to destroy his carefully crafted image. But I wasn't interested in destroying him yet. First, I wanted to watch him squirm. I spent the morning at my shop, letting Trevor wonder what had happened to his phone while I planned my next move. Around noon, I called Chloe. We need to talk, I said when she answered. Jake, thank God, I've been thinking about what you said, and maybe we can work this out. At Luigi's, 1 hour, come alone. Luigi's was a small Italian place where we'd had our first date 20 years ago. The irony seemed appropriate. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth and looking nervous. She'd dressed carefully, the blue dress I used to love, her hair styled the way she wore it when we were dating. She was trying to seduce me back into complacency. You look good, she said as I sat down. Thanks, you look desperate. Her smile faltered. Jake, please, can't we be civil about this? I placed Trevor's phone on the table between us. Her face went white. Recognize this? She stared at the phone like it was a venomous snake. Where did you get that? Your boyfriend dropped it during his midnight visit to our house. His what? I scrolled to the text messages and began reading aloud. Can't wait to feel you again. Your husband is such a loser. After the divorce, we can be together openly. She reached for the phone, but I pulled it away. There's more. Want to hear about your plans for next weekend? Or should I skip to the part where you discuss liquidating our assets? Jake, stop. People are staring. Let them stare. I'm just reading messages from my wife's lover. Nothing to be ashamed of, right? Tears started streaming down her face, but I felt no sympathy. These weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of a woman who'd been caught. How long? I asked. What? How long have you been screwing Trevor? She flinched at my language. It's not like that. How long, Chloe? 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies, deception, and humiliation. Half a year of coming home to a woman who was fantasizing about another man while she kissed me goodnight. And Rita knew? Chloe nodded miserably. She introduced us. Of course she did. Rita had been trying to break us up for years, always making snide comments about how Chloe could do better, how she deserved a more successful man. What about our friends, Will and Tara? They don't know anything. But they suspected. Another nod. Tara asked me about it last month. I denied everything. I leaned back in my chair and studied my wife's tear-streaked face. You know what the worst part is? It's not the cheating. It's the fact that you were too cowardly to just ask for a divorce. You had to sneak around, lie, and humiliate me instead of being honest about what you wanted. I was scared. Of what? That I'd fight for our marriage? That I'd try to win you back? Of hurting you. I laughed bitterly. Well, mission accomplished. I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. The divorce papers are still on the kitchen counter. Sign them and this can all be civilized. Keep playing games, and I'll make sure everyone in Dallas knows exactly what kind of woman you are. What do you mean? I held up Trevor's phone. Social media is a powerful thing, Chloe. These messages could go viral in about 10 minutes. Her eyes widened in horror. You wouldn't. Try me. I left her sitting in the restaurant crying into her untouched salad. The next phase of my plan was already in motion. That afternoon, I drove to Trevor's real estate office, a sleek glass building in the trendy part of downtown. His headshot was prominently displayed in the lobby, all white teeth and fake sincerity. The receptionist, a young blonde who probably reminded Trevor of Chloe 10 years ago, greeted me with a professional smile. I'm here to see Trevor Miles, I said. Do you have an appointment? Tell him Jake Fairmont is here. He'll want to see me. She made the call, and I watched her expression change from professional courtesy to confusion to concern. He says he's in a meeting. Tell him I have his phone. Another call, and suddenly Trevor was available. His office was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive furniture, motivational posters, and a wall of awards for sales achievements. Trevor sat behind his desk trying to look confident, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Jake, good to see you. About last night. You mean when you were trespassing on my property? He shifted uncomfortably. I was just trying to talk to Chloe, to explain things. Explain what? How you've been screwing my wife for 6 months? Look, man, I never meant for this to happen. It just developed. Developed. I repeated the word like it tasted bad. Like a disease. I placed his phone on his desk. Your messages are very illuminating, especially the ones about liquidating assets and planning your future together. Those were just fantasies. We weren't really going to what? Steal my money? Destroy my marriage? Ruin my life? I leaned across his desk and he pressed back into his chair. Here's what's going to happen, Trevor. You're going to end this affair immediately. You're going to tell Chloe it was all a mistake. And you're going to stay away from my family. And if I don't, I smiled and pulled out a flash drive, then these security camera footage and text messages get sent to every real estate agent in Dallas, along with your clients, your boss, and that wife you forgot to mention. His face went pale. My wife? Did you really think I wouldn't do basic research? Sandra Miles, married to you for 12 years, mother of your 2 children. I wonder how she'd feel about your extracurricular activities. You can't do this. I can and I will. Unless you do exactly what I tell you, I stood up and headed for the door. You have 24 hours to end things with Chloe. After that, all bets are off. That evening, I went back to Ricky's gym for another training session. My body was already getting stronger, more confident. But more importantly, my mind was sharp, focused, ready for whatever came next. You're looking better, Ricky observed as I worked the speed bag. More aggressive. I'm motivated. Good. Anger can be useful if you channel it right, but don't let it control you. Don't worry. I'm in complete control. My phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. Trevor broke up with me. Are you happy now? I smiled and typed back, ecstatic. Sign the papers. We need to talk about this like adults. We're past talking. You made your choice. Jake, please. I made a mistake. Can't we try counseling? I stared at the message for a long moment. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at the chance to save our marriage. But that man was gone, replaced by someone harder, smarter, and infinitely less forgiving. Too late, I typed. You wanted out. Now you get what you wanted. I turned off the phone and went back to hitting the bag. Each punch felt like justice. The next few days passed in a strange calm, like the eye of a hurricane. Chloe moved around the house like a ghost, trying to engage me in conversation, while I systematically dismantled our shared life. I canceled joint subscriptions, divided up photo albums, and started boxing up her belongings. She watched me work with growing desperation. This is insane, Jake. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. You broke it. I'm just cleaning up the mess. What about our daughter? That stopped me cold. Olivia was spending the week with Chloe's parents, blissfully unaware that her world was about to implode. She was the one innocent victim in this whole mess, and the thought of hurting her made my chest tight. Olivia will be fine. Kids are resilient. She needs both her parents. She needs parents who respect each other. We're not those people anymore. Chloe sat down heavily on our couch, surrounded by boxes of her designer clothes. I never meant for it to go this far, but it did go this far, and now we deal with the consequences. My phone rang. Rita's name appeared on the screen and I smiled. Time for the next phase. Jake? Rita's voice was sickeningly sweet. I heard about you and Chloe. I just wanted you to know that if you need someone to talk to... Actually, Rita, I do need to talk to someone. Can you meet me at Murphy's bar tonight? Around 8? Of course, I'll be there. Murphy's was a dive bar on the wrong side of town, the kind of place where Rita wouldn't be caught dead under normal circumstances. But curiosity would get the better of her. I arrived early and chose a table in the back corner where we wouldn't be overheard. Rita showed up 20 minutes late, dressed like she was going to a country club instead of a bar that served beer in plastic cups. This place is interesting, she said, looking around nervously. It's private. We need to talk about Chloe. Rita leaned forward eagerly. She's devastated, Jake. Absolutely heartbroken. About the divorce or about losing Trevor? Her eyes widened. You know about Trevor? I know everything, including your role in introducing them. Rita's face flushed red. I don't know what you mean. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a screenshot I'd taken from Trevor's messages. Right here. Rita thinks we'd be perfect together. Ring any bells? She stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Jake, I can explain. You've been trying to break up my marriage for years. You finally found the right weapon. That's not true. Isn't it? You never liked me, Rita. I was never good enough for your best friend. Not rich enough, not sophisticated enough, not worthy of the great Chloe Fairmont. She didn't deny it. Chloe deserves someone who appreciates her. And you decided Trevor was that someone? He makes her happy. He makes her feel important. There's a difference. I leaned back in my chair and studied Rita's face. She was scared now, realizing that her little matchmaking scheme had blown up in spectacular fashion. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. You're going to call Chloe and tell her that pursuing this divorce is the best thing for everyone. You're going to support her decision to sign the papers and move on with her life. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure everyone in our social circle knows exactly what kind of friend you really are. I showed her another screenshot, messages between her and Trevor discussing Chloe's boring marriage and their plans to help her see what she's missing. These could be very embarrassing for you, Rita, especially the part where you call Will a pretentious ass and Tara a desperate housewife. Her face went white. You can't share those. Watch me. I stood up and dropped a 10 on the table. You have until tomorrow night to convince Chloe to sign the papers. After that, your little secrets become public knowledge. The next evening, I was working late at the shop when Chloe called. Rita thinks I should sign the papers, she said without preamble. Smart woman. She says fighting you will only make things worse. She's right. There was a long pause. Jake, I need you to know that I never stopped loving you. You had a funny way of showing it. I got lost somewhere along the way. The affair, it wasn't about not loving you. It was about not loving myself. That's very philosophical, Chloe, but it doesn't change anything. I know, I wanted you to know. Are you going to sign the papers? Another pause. Yes. Good. I'll have my lawyer contact yours tomorrow. What about our friends? Will and Tara, the others? I smiled in the darkness of my shop. What about them? They're going to want to know what happened. Then tell them the truth. You cheated. I caught you. And now we're getting divorced. Simple story. They'll judge me. Probably, but that's not my problem anymore. I hung up and went back to work. The Mustang's engine was finally purring like a contented cat. Some things could be fixed. Others were too broken to save. The next morning, I woke up to find the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, signed and notarized. Chloe had already left for work, probably unable to face me after making it official. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty. 15 years of marriage reduced to a legal document and a signature. My phone buzzed with a text from Will. "Heard about you and Chloe. Sorry, man. If you need anything." Then Tara. "Can't believe this is happening. You guys seem so happy." Then a dozen more from acquaintances, neighbors, and casual friends. News traveled fast in our little suburban bubble, but it was the last message that caught my attention. From Trevor, "We need to talk." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back, "Murphy's Bar, tonight, 9 p.m. It was time for the final confrontation. Murphy's Bar was nearly empty when I arrived, just a few regulars nursing their sorrows and a bartender who'd seen everything twice. I chose the same corner table where I'd met Rita, ordered a beer, and waited. Trevor showed up 10 minutes later, looking around nervously before spotting me. He'd traded his usual expensive suit for jeans and a polo shirt, probably trying to blend in with the working-class crowd. It didn't work. He still looked like exactly what he was, a privileged pretty boy playing dress-up. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, sliding into the opposite chair. "Didn't think I had a choice. Your text sounded pretty urgent." He ordered a scotch on the rocks and took a long sip before speaking. "Look, Jake, I know you're angry. Angry doesn't begin to cover it. But I think we can work this out like civilized men." I laughed. "Civilized? You've been screwing my wife for 6 months, and now you want to be civilized?" It wasn't supposed to happen. Chloe and we just connected. Connected, right. Is that what we're calling it now? Trevor shifted uncomfortably. She was unhappy, Jake. She needed someone who understood her ambitions, her dreams. Her dreams of expensive restaurants and luxury hotels. Her dreams of being appreciated, of being with someone who saw her potential. I leaned forward. "And what potential is that, Trevor? The potential to be your mistress while you stay married to your wife?" His face flushed red. "That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a photo I'd taken earlier. Chloe's signed divorce papers. "She signed these this morning. Congratulations. You got what you wanted." Trevor stared at the photo, and for a moment, something flickered across his face. Not triumph or satisfaction, but something that looked almost like regret. "I never wanted to break up your marriage." Bullshit. That's exactly what you wanted. You just didn't want to deal with the consequences. What do you mean? I smiled coldly. I mean, Chloe's going to expect you to leave your wife now. She's going to expect the fairy tale romance you promised her in all those text messages. Are you ready for that, Trevor? His silence was answer enough. I didn't think so. You see, I know guys like you. You're all about the chase, the forbidden fruit, the thrill of taking something that doesn't belong to you. But once you actually have it, once there's no more sneaking around and secret meetings, it loses its appeal. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you called her? When's the last time you answered one of her texts? Trevor looked down at his drink. She's been clingy since the separation. Clingy. She left her husband for you, and you think she's clingy. I just need some space to figure things out. I stood up and threw a 20 on the table. You're pathetic, Trevor. At least I loved my wife when I married her. You're just a coward who likes playing with other people's lives. Where are you going? Home, to start my new life. You should do the same, assuming you can figure out what you actually want. I was halfway to the door when Trevor called out, Jake, wait! I turned around. He was standing now, his face flushed with anger or embarrassment, or both. You think you're so much better than me, don't you? The noble husband, the victim in all this. But maybe if you'd paid more attention to your wife, she wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. The bar went quiet. Even the regulars stopped talking to watch the show. I walked back to Trevor slowly, deliberately. He was bigger than me, younger, probably in better shape thanks to his expensive gym membership. But I'd been training with Ricky for weeks now, and more importantly, I had nothing left to lose. You want to blame me for your affair? I asked quietly. I'm just saying, maybe you should look in the mirror before you judge other people. You're right. I should have paid more attention. I should have noticed when my wife started staying late at the office. I should have questioned why she suddenly needed new lingerie and expensive perfume. I should have realized that a woman who used to complain about spending money on dinner was suddenly okay with five-star hotels and weekend getaways. I stepped closer. But you know what I should have done most of all? I should have kicked your ass the first time I caught you sniffing around my wife. Trevor raised his hands defensively. Jake, calm down. I am calm. Calmer than I've been in months. I grabbed him by the shirt and slammed him against the wall. The sound echoed through the bar like a gunshot. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice deadly quiet. You're going to stay away from Chloe. You're going to stay away from me. And if I ever see you anywhere near my daughter, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation. You're crazy. I'm motivated. There's a difference. I released him and stepped back. Trevor straightened his shirt, trying to salvage what was left of his dignity. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. I walked out of the bar and into the cool Dallas night. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or anger, from relief. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, paperwork, and the slow process of untangling 15 years of shared life. Chloe moved in with Rita temporarily, which seemed fitting since Rita had orchestrated the whole mess. Our friends chose sides, as friends always do in divorces. Will and Tara tried to stay neutral, but eventually gravitated toward Chloe, probably because she was more fun at dinner parties. A few of my buddies from the shop rallied around me, but mostly I found I didn't care about maintaining our old social circle. I was building something new. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in October. Chloe got the house. I didn't want it anymore anyway, too many bad memories. And I got my shop, my truck, and my self-respect. We agreed on joint custody of Olivia, who took the news better than I'd expected. Are you happier now, Dad? She asked during our first weekend together in my new apartment. I'm getting there, sweetheart. Are you okay with all this? I think so. Mom seems different lately, sadder. She'll be okay too. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and they have to deal with the consequences. Like when I broke Mrs. Patterson's window with my baseball? Exactly like that, except bigger. That afternoon, we were at the grocery store when I saw Trevor in the produce section. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, the kind of desperate appearance that suggested his fairy tale romance wasn't going as planned. He saw me and started to turn away, but I called out to him, Trevor, how's life treating you? He turned around reluctantly. Fine, just fine. Good to hear. How are things with Chloe? His face darkened. We're taking a break. A break? That's too bad. I thought you two were soulmates. It's complicated. I'll bet it is. Turns out it's easier to be the other man than the only man, isn't it? He didn't answer, just grabbed his cart and headed for the checkout. But I wasn't done with him yet. Trevor, I called out loudly enough for other shoppers to hear. Give Chloe my regards. Tell her I said she deserves someone who actually wants to be with her. Several people turned to stare. Trevor's face burned red as he hurried away. Olivia looked up at me with curious eyes. Who was that, Dad? Nobody important, sweetheart. Just a man who's learning that actions have consequences. 6 months later, I heard through the suburban gossip network that Trevor had moved to Austin, supposedly for a new job opportunity, but really to escape the wreckage of his Dallas life. His wife had filed for divorce after discovering his affairs, plural, as it turned out. Chloe had been just one of several married women he'd been juggling. Chloe herself was doing better. She'd moved into a condo downtown, thrown herself into her work, and, according to Olivia, was dating a doctor she'd met at a charity function. I hoped he was a good man who would appreciate what he had and not take it for granted the way I had. As for me, I was thriving. The shop was busier than ever, word having spread that I was the guy who could fix anything, no matter how broken it seemed. I'd started dating a teacher named Sarah who laughed at my jokes and didn't mind that I came home with grease under my fingernails. Most importantly, I'd learned something valuable from the whole experience. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's building a better life than they could ever imagine. I was standing in my shop one evening, working on a classic Camaro that reminded me of my first car, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Jake, it's Trevor." I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want?" I wanted to apologize. For everything. A little late for that, don't you think? I know. I just needed to say it. You were right about me. I am a coward. I destroyed your marriage, my marriage, hurt a lot of people. And for what? Nothing that lasted. That's what happens when you build your happiness on someone else's pain. I know that now. I'm in therapy, trying to figure out why I do the things I do. Good for you. But I'm not interested in your redemption arc, Trevor. You made your choices. Live with them. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I hung up without responding and went back to work. The Camaro's engine was in rough shape, but it wasn't beyond saving. With enough time, patience, and skill, almost anything could be restored to its former glory. Some things were worth fighting for. Others were better left in the past. A year after the divorce was final, I got an invitation to Will and Tara's anniversary party. I almost threw it away, but something made me reconsider. Maybe it was time to face the past without anger or bitterness. The party was exactly what I'd expected. The same people, the same conversations, the same suburban drama dressed up in cocktail attire. Chloe was there with her doctor boyfriend, looking happy and relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years. We talked briefly, politely, like acquaintances who shared a history, but no longer shared a life. "You look good," she said. "Thanks, you too. How's the new job?" "Challenging. I made partner last month." "Congratulations, you always wanted that." "Yeah, I did." There was an awkward pause, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us. "Jake, I want you to know—" "Don't," I interrupted gently. "We're good, Chloe. We're both where we need to be." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "Take care of yourself." "You too." I left the party early and drove home to my apartment, where Sarah was waiting with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. We ate dinner on the couch, watching a movie neither of us cared about, just enjoying each other's company. "Good party?" she asked. "It was fine, but I'm glad to be home." "Me too." Later that night, as Sarah slept beside me, I thought about the man I'd been 2 years ago. Angry, bitter, consumed with thoughts of revenge. That man had gotten his satisfaction, had made his enemies pay for their betrayals. But this man, the one I'd become, had something better. He had peace. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.